My teaching career started with some substitute teaching jobs between October 2001 and January or February 2002. My father had, if I remember correctly, been urging me to try teaching. I taught junior high school students on 3 or 4 occasions in October and November 2001 in the Helsinki region of southern Finland. I taught history, social studies, English and French. My substitute teaching job of January or February 2002 was at a private Christian school of the Helsinki region, and there I taught a class of grade 4 pupils. The pupils' and students' behavior was variable. Some of them listened intently to my teaching and even asked interesting and thoughtful questions. Some others sometimes or often disturbed my teaching by talking over me. On one memorable occasion, a girl sang "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas" during a history lesson inspired by a snow flurry. Other students' and pupils' behavior was at times good and at times bad. In August 2004, a private school of the Helsinki region hired me as a school assistant or an educational assistant to work in a special education class of grade 7 students. I was in effect the special education teacher's assistant, in addition to assisting the students in their exercises and assignments. During that school year, which ended in June 2005, I found out that special education is not one of my strengths, and that I perform reasonably well only when assisting or teaching those special education pupils and students who behave nicely and try their best, or at least do not disturb others. Their only notable problem is that they are slow learners. I was on a number of occasions, and rightly so, in retrospect, rebuked by the special education teacher for not doing my job well enough. After all, I had had no education or previous work experience. So how well could I have done my job? However, she did on a few occasions, or on some occasions, thank me for trying my best. Anyway, trying to teach or to assist those special education pupils or students who have severe behavioral and temperamental problems, such as sudden outbursts of anger, in addition to their learning problems, was notably difficult for me, and has remained so during those later occasions when I had substituted for special education teachers. A major problem for me is that I prefer peaceful and quiet teaching settings and learning settings, and those are not that easy to find during the special education lessons. Another one is that I'm not as patient as I should be with those slow, and especially slow and emotionally disturbed learners. Third occasion is that it's difficult for me to remain calm when there seems to be chaos in the classroom. Fourth problem is that I prefer to teach specifics rather than basics. And the fifth problem is that I'm, generally speaking, probably somewhat too serious for that setting. And the sixth problem is that, generally speaking, also I am more of an information and thinking exercises oriented teacher than a fun, games, song and creative activities oriented teacher. But let's go on. In August 2005, by God's grace, the same Christian school of the Helsinki region, where I had substitute taught in January or February 2002, hired me as a part-time history and social studies teacher and as an educational assistant of single pupils or students and small groups of pupils and students. During the autumn semester from August to December 2005, I had a number of problems with various misbehaving adolescents. But thanks to God, a supportive school staff, and many intercessors, I was able to overcome those challenges sufficiently well to be hired also for the spring semester from January to June 2006. In November and December 2005, I also taught biology on a part-time basis. My job as an educational assistant also ended in December 2005, and I was relieved because some students had behaved notably badly and emotional strength consumingly during those clinic lessons. Generally speaking, during the spring semester of 2006, I acquired already more routine as a history and social studies teacher and began gradually to enjoy teaching even adolescents or junior high school students. At the same time, I noticed that it is clearly easier for me to manage classrooms which contain mostly motivated, well-behaved and cooperative students than those which contain at least several demotivated, misbehaved and passive or uncooperative and, of course, disruptive students. In August 2006, I substituted for an English, French and physical education teacher at a combined junior and senior high school in the Kouvola region of southeastern Finland for 2 weeks. Generally speaking, I liked that job, although again I faced some problems because of some misbehaving teenagers. However, compared to the Helsinki region's schools, there appeared to be proportionately fewer of them. Teaching physical education was understandably more difficult than teaching English and French because I am not very athletic and because I have read during my life a lot more than practiced sports. Fortunately, again, some school staff members were cooperative and helpful, which reduced the challenges and burdens of substitute teaching at a new and geographically distant school, because I was living in the Helsinki region back then. In September 2006, I was hired as a substitute teacher by a recruiting company, which still works in the Helsinki region. However, nowadays it hires notably few substitute teachers for some reason or reasons. During that month, I began to substitute teach at grade schools in Helsinki. Until February 2007, I worked as an itinerant or moving around substitute teacher at various elementary and junior high schools, and at a few or some combined elementary and junior high schools of the Helsinki region. However, a senior high school of Hämeenlinna, a city in southern Finland, some 100 kilometers to the north or northwest of Helsinki, hired me as a part-time history and economics teacher. I taught on 3 days per week during October and November 2006. And generally speaking, I enjoyed teaching those mature teenagers. I rarely had to remark to them about speaking when they should not have spoken during my teaching, and generally speaking, we had good edifying and intellectually stimulating class discussions. In January 2007, I taught for 1 week a challenging grade 6 class in the Hämeenlinna region. From February to March 2007, I substitute taught English and Swedish at an internationally oriented grade school of Helsinki. And from March to June 2007, I substitute taught English and Swedish at a grade school of the Helsinki region, which, at least back then, included grades 5 to 9. There I taught grades 7 to 9. That school year gave me a greater routine in facing, teaching, assisting, and motivating various pupils and students, although, of course, since I lacked formal pedagogical training, I often had to learn teaching skills through trial and error, or through the regular and qualified teacher's kind and caring advice. Unfortunately, often I lost my temper with those misbehaving pupils or students, a vice that has remained with me until at least recently. I'm really praying hard to get rid of it fully. In August 2007, a great miracle happened. I was hired as a substitute history and social studies teacher by a rather large senior high school of the Helsinki region. There I taught for 2 school years until May 2009. The regular history and social studies teacher was on maternity leave and on childcare leave. Most of the time I got along well with those mature teenagers, and overall I enjoyed my teaching a lot more than I had enjoyed teaching junior high school students. Usually there I did not have to impose a harsh or strict discipline on the students, and often we had edifying and interesting classroom discussions during my lessons. I taught Finnish history, general or world history, then one, if I remember correctly, one course about various world cultures, several courses about general or basic social studies, several courses about economics or introductory economics, if I remember correctly, 2 or 3 introductory law courses, at least 2 courses about the European Union, and so forth. During that time, also from August to September 2008, I taught history and social studies, actually economics, at an adults senior high school of Helsinki. The exams were held in October 2006. I also substitute taught French on a few occasions. During some of those lessons, at least, I taught fellow adults. Anyway, when I left that school in May 2009, I was somewhat sad due to my notably good experiences there. That I considered the pinnacle of my teaching career until that point. From August to September, I substitute taught the Finnish language at a junior high school of the Helsinki region for 2 weeks. I performed variably with those adolescents. Fortunately, some students and classes were more motivated and cooperative than the others. Then until April 2010, I again substitute taught at many schools, mostly elementary schools of the Helsinki region. During the second half of April 2010, the large senior high school of the Helsinki region, where I had taught for 2 school years, rehired me as a substitute social studies teacher. I performed fairly well there, although some students misbehaved, mainly by sometimes talking over me while I was teaching. In May 2010, I still substitute taught at a few elementary schools before my long summer holiday from teaching. In August 2010, my substitute teaching career resumed with a single-day English teacher's job at a combined elementary and junior high school in Helsinki. I taught, however, on the high school side. During the school year 2010 to 2011, I again taught at many grade schools, mostly elementary schools, of the Helsinki region. From January to May 2011, I taught several times at an elementary school of Helsinki, and there I taught again, often during the autumn months and winter months of 2011 to 2012 until February 2012. My teaching performance possibly improved a bit or somewhat from the previous school year's performance, although I quite often faced nerve-testing situations with misbehaving pupils and students. In August 2011, I taught a grade 5 class for 2 days in the southern Finnish city of Lahti, some 100 kilometers to the northeast of Helsinki. After that, my itinerant substitute teaching job continued in the Helsinki region. During that school year and after that, I normally was called to substitute teach directly by the schools concerned. The recruiting company which had hired me as a substitute teacher back in 2006 had a decreasing number of substitute teaching jobs to offer for some reason or reasons. During January and February 2012, I taught a rather challenging grade 2 class in Helsinki. From February to March 2012, I taught history and economics at a senior high school of the Helsinki region, and again I enjoyed my teaching overall more there than at junior high schools, although I had discovered already back in September 2010 that at that senior high school, especially first year students had notable behavioral problems, basically talking over teachers and sometimes talking nastily back to them, at least at substitute teachers like myself. Then for the remainder of the 2012 spring term, I taught at several grade schools of the Helsinki region. The one exception was the first week of April 2012 when I substitute taught history. I can't remember for history and the Finnish language for 3 days at a junior high school to the west of the Helsinki region. In August and September 2012, for a total of 1 month, I substitute taught history, social studies and ethics at the same junior high school and law at the senior high school, which is located in the same school building. While most junior high school students were better behaved than in the Helsinki region, on average, some of them behaved notably badly. Again, I enjoyed teaching senior high school students more than the junior high school ones. For most of the remainder of the 2012 to 2013 school year, I worked again as an itinerant grade school substitute teacher of the Helsinki region. In at least May 2013, if I remember correctly, I foolishly worked as a substitute educational assistant at a few elementary schools of the Helsinki region. In August and September 2013, I substitute taught history and social studies for 5 weeks at a grade school of Lahti. My lessons went variably. Generally speaking, one grade 7 class and one grade 9 class behaved much better and were more cooperative than the others. My switches between substitute teaching and substitute educational assisting continued until October 2013, when I was, due to passivity or the lack of self-initiative in the classroom, suspended from the latter job, and rightly so. From October 2013 to May 2014, I worked as a part-time English teacher at an adults senior high school of the Helsinki region. Aside from a few more challenging groups, there were basically 2 of them. I again enjoyed that level of education, and I was thankful to God for providing that valuable teaching job for me. Because the job was mostly an evening job, aside from the last 2 study periods from March to May 2014, then it was an afternoon job as far as a grade 10 class was concerned, although still in March and early April 2014 I evening taught 1 or 2 courses at another location of the adult senior high school. I often substitute taught in the daytime at elementary schools and sometimes at junior high schools, occasionally I assume at combined elementary and junior high schools. Because of my adult senior high school English teacher's job, I probably felt more satisfied with the 2013 to 2014 school year than with the previous school year. From August to September 2014, I worked for about 5 weeks as a part-time substitute guidance counselor at a grade school for grades 6 to 9 I taught actually grades 8 and 9 of the Helsinki region. Personally, I was quite dissatisfied with my performance over there because quite many students misbehaved during my lessons, often enough to make them unpleasant. Fortunately, towards the end of that difficult job, my lessons became somewhat calmer, and I worked actually as the substitute of a history and religion teacher for my final day there in the third week of September 2014, and thankfully that day went notably well compared to many other days. On Tuesdays and Fridays during that period, I occasionally taught at other grade schools. After that job, I taught at some or several schools of the Helsinki region for a couple of weeks until that junior high school located to the west of the Helsinki region recalled me to substitute teach history and social studies. I held that job until one day before my emigration to Asia. While most students behaved well, especially compared to their age mates of the Helsinki region, a few or some students behaved notably badly. It took me some or several months to fully get over the emotional distress which I suffered from as a result. In retrospect, it was a big mistake on my part to accept that substitute teaching job and probably also the substitute guidance counselor job, because my previous substitute teachings of guidance counseling had usually been just one day or at most 2 days, I think. Here in the Philippines, I have taught at a theological seminary for 1 day per week on 2 occasions, from January to March 2015 and from November 2015 until the present time. My current course will end in March 2016. I have really enjoyed teaching those well-behaved, cooperative, generally motivated, quite active, and at least mostly godly young adults. Although my salary suffices only for my travel expenses, I have been truly grateful to God and to that seminary for providing me with that teaching work. It has been emotionally and probably pedagogically one of the best teaching jobs which I have ever held. My success in that teaching job has already largely wiped out the guilt, shame, remorse, disappointment, dissatisfaction, frustration, and anger which I felt in August 2015, when after a 2-month teaching job, a local Christian grade school's administrator suspended me for not getting along well enough with the students. In retrospect, she did the right thing, because especially in one location of the school, many students had such severe behavioral mistakes that they would require, at least on a part-time basis, special education teaching. And unfortunately, I'm not strong in special education, and I foolishly assumed that just because of the initial positive impression which the school's administrator had made on me, and just because of the school's status as a Christian school, the students would be so well behaved that I would have mostly positive teaching experiences. In one location, many teaching experiences were bad. In another location, my teaching experiences were clearly more positive, although still not ideal ones for the most part. I taught English, Christian education or Bible studies, history, world history and Asian history, very briefly also Philippine history, statistics and mathematics. Sorry. That experience taught me to be cautious when offering myself as a teacher for Christian schools. Despite their often lofty and appealing names, they can contain many misbehaving and or emotionally troubled or disturbed and or disruptive pupils or students. Anyway, at present I am in a teacher's training course, which I hope and pray to successfully finish in March 2016. My prayer is to get a worthy teaching job, preferably at a senior high school or at a college, starting in June 2016. Honestly, based on my teaching experiences so far, I would prefer to teach from now on, or at least starting in June 2016, more or less exclusively at senior high schools and at colleges, unless I would be able to pick and choose the students of lower levels whom I would teach. Anyway, during my active teaching career of nearly 10 years, I have learned to trust God more and to pray to Him more for help, peace of mind, wisdom, various other abilities, mercy, and forgiveness. Gradually, I have learned to teach, assist, encourage, motivate, and cooperate with various kinds of pupils and students, and of course to discipline them. Of course, I still have a lot to learn, especially in patience, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional mercy, unconditional love, empathy, and sense of humor. However, I'm thankful to God for having brought me thus far, and I sincerely pray that somehow also my teaching will bring glory to Him, and that I will learn to witness about Jesus in ways that please Him while teaching, or while I am teaching. Above all, I pray that even through my teaching and witnessing, at least some of my students will get saved. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and bye-bye for now.